All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? It's time for the final countdown. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Hello, viewers. Welcome to the Power Impact Series show. And today, we want to say very sorry for starting late. But hey, that is it. We are here with the bomb. We are here with someone in the studio that you want to listen to over and over and over again. My name is Ambassador Benjamin Oswansa, and it is always a pleasure and an honor and privilege to be here hosting the Power Impact Series brought to you by the African Seasoned Speakers Network. Right. So before we move in, I would just want to just read a little bit about the person that we're going to host today. And then from there, this super guest will pick it up. So he is a senior vice president of EasyPay Africa and a managing partner at Acon Lighting Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome to our studio Mr. Farouk Khailann. And he is going to lead us through a wonderful topic that is going to open a lot of avenues for us to ask questions and then also share our thought with him. But before we do that, and before he comes on, we want to take our first commercial break. And after that, we're going to have Mr. Farouk do his thing with us. So stick around. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back shortly.
Need a spark to kickstart your innovation? Looking for thought and talks to get things moving? Wondering how to navigate a future full of change and uncertainty? With the eye-opening stories of digital disruption, extreme customer centricity, organizational innovation, and global shift, our collective of speakers, MCs, and moderators will shift your perspective. Meet our speakers. For booking and interviews, contact us on 0246 054092 or send us a mail info.accessnet@gmail.com. You can also follow us on all social media channels at AccessNet Global, African Seasoned Speakers Network, influencing the next generation of Africans.
Right, welcome back from the commercial break. And then I'm Ambassador Benjamin Oswansa. And today we're going to discuss with Farouk, our guest, on the topic, the role of leadership in economic transformation. What are some of the questions that you intend to have for Farouk? And what are the things or suggestions you have for him when he joins us online? So we can just kickstart from your perspective and from what you think about the role leadership plays in economic transformation. How has the economies of the world been since the pandemic struck? And how has the economies of certain countries been since Russia and the Ukraine war? How has your country's economic been? How has other countries' economic been that you are aware of? This is a time for us to share. This is a time for us to chat. This is a time for us to brainstorm about the roles that leadership plays in transforming economies. We can talk about a lot of economies that have been transformed by the tax the leaders put in place in transforming it. We can talk about some of the war-torn countries that you can mention about. We can talk about some of the great countries in the world that leadership played a key role in transforming their economy. Today, the man in the studio who happens to work with variety of organizations and companies as the senior vice president of EasyPay Africa and also a managing partner at Acon Lighting Africa and the CEO of Premium African Holdings. He's got a lot of experience under his belt and he's willing and ready to share with us most of the things he's been through and a lot of things he's gone through holding the position in this renowned organization. So, in short, Mr. Farouk will be here to help us understand some of the roles that leaders play in transforming economies. So this one moves further from being the CEO or the vice president of an organization to the main affairs handling of nations. So how leaders of nations are able to lay down certain rules and certain principles and certain economic policies that will change the economy of the countries that they are presiding or ruling over. So he's going to be here with us to share with us shortly. Currently, he is having some challenges from where he is connecting us from. He is not with us in person at our studios, and he's connecting from very far away place due to his numerous assignments. So we might have some little challenges with his connection, but hey, once we get him on board, he's going to give us all that he is prepared to have for us today. So stick around, don't move, be patient with us, and Mr. Farouk is going to do what he does best by giving to us all that he's put together for us. So in the meantime, whatever question you envisage for him or whatever question you have for Mr. Farouk, our chat box is ready for that. We will be ready, and we are so humble to receive all that you have for him, any question you have for Mr. Farouk, and then we're going to relay it to him, and he's going to put it or be part of his presentation, and he's going to answer them accordingly for you. So our chat boxes are open now to receive questions so that when he gets on board, we move straight to the topic of the day. But in between time, I just want you to share with me where you are connecting us from, where you are joining us from, wherever you join us from. Let me hear from you. Let me see you. Put in the chat box your name and where you're connecting us from, and let's start the communication going. I can see in the communication box the one and only Lady Be Bless. How are you doing? I can see you in the chat box, connecting from all the way the United States of America. And who else is on here with us today? Just let me hear the vibe. Let me hear the vibe from you. Send me where you viewing us from or wherever you're joining us from. Let's get chatting in the box. I want to welcome you all. You can start sharing the page and let other people also join and also be part of this wonderful conversation that we're going to have about the role of leadership in economic transformation. So let's keep it rolling. Yeah. You were great, Lady Be Blessed. It was a wonderful time having you the other time. And we said we're going to come back to you again. So get ready. We are going to definitely come back to you again for another section of your presentation. And we really enjoyed your radio voice. Let's keep it flowing. Let's keep it flowing. Let's keep it rolling. Yeah. Yes.
Ambassador, it's
good. Ladies and gentlemen, he is in here. Mr. Farouk, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ambassador. Very sorry. These are the challenges that we always have to deal with, particularly in Africa. The internet is not stable. I'm somewhere quite remote, so pardon me. I want to apologize to your audience as well.
Right. That's okay. So, as the vice president of EasyPay Africa, what does EasyPay Africa do, or what is EasyPay Africa into? We just want to know about that.
Well, EasyPay is a money remittance platform. It allows Africans and any other national anywhere in the world to remit money onto the mobile wallets of people located in Africa. So it's a convenience platform. We understand that financial inclusion is very important, and technology is here to foster that. So it's a very brilliant platform that allows people to able to remit money to their relatives, business partners across the world. So that's what EasyPay is about.
Right, that's beautiful. Lovely to know. So, right, straight into the topic for today, which is the role of leadership in economic transformation. In the first place, how does one start that transformation in an economic situation?
Well, I have always been an advocate of personal development first, because once as an individual you're able to develop yourself personally, you liberate yourself financially, you empower yourself economically. It all dovetails into the collective front of economic liberation for all of us totally. So it starts from the individual, and economic empowerment is based on discipline, based on this decisions, and it's based on certain sacrifices that you put in place at an early stage of growth. So I'm always, keen on working on the individual, standpoint when it comes to the conversation about economic, growth, liberation, anything related to, economic growth. I like to zone in and I say it starts from the individual. Once an individual is empowered, it like I said, it dovetails into a collective, liberation of an entire continent and globally as well. So it starts from the individual.
Right. So it starts from the individual. So whatever you are doing now, that is the start you have already begun. It is from you.
Absolutely.
So that you can move.
It's from you. It's from you. That's what it's about.
Right, right. So once you start it, how do you then master it with that leadership qualities to make it a viable something or a viable venture for you?
Well, I think once you master, economic liberation, it starts from the mind as well. Then once you want to lead, then you need to understand that leadership is service. It's not a case where it's domineering. You are here to serve. So once you have that mindset that leadership is about service, it reflects in everything you do. Typically in my general navigation of business, social, you realize that a lot of the time I want to solicit for other people's opinion. I'm not so entrenched about my standpoint, my opinions. I keep an open mind, and it allows me to be very dynamic. And so once you show that commitment that you are here to serve, it makes you put people first. Any leadership that identifies with people first, you realize that it translates into a very, very, beautiful phenomenon for all of us, for every dispensation. I like to refer to the Middle East a lot because I'm mostly there, and I have seen how selfless leadership has translated into total economic empowerment for nations. So I would always want to project that, look, once you want to link leadership, economic transformation to leadership, it borders on putting people first. Once you are putting people first, you are making selfless decisions, and eventually you, the leader, becomes the biggest beneficiary of it because you're the one that has put these mechanisms in place, and you realize that you are highly glorified, and then your people become, happy, your people are happy, and your economy is flourishing, and then you take credit for that. Once the credit falls on your doorstep, it's also on you to acknowledge those who helped you to be able to achieve this, economic transformation. So that is what I have to say about that.
Right. That's brilliant and that's beautiful. So trying to get options or getting views from people that you are leading, doesn't it make you look more inadequate or kind of capable? That's why you are trying to rely on others' views for what you're doing.
I think most leaders where people fail when it comes to leadership. Typically, when you're having I've had the privilege to sit with some people that I never dreamt I'll be able to sit across the table with, and for me to be able to be in a room with these people, and what resonates throughout the conversation is, what do you think, Farouk? What's your opinion, Farouk? So it tells you that as a leader, any leader that you start to you see those traits from, it tells you that yes, you are home when it comes to the leadership conversation. You absolutely lose nothing when you ask people's opinion. In fact, it gives you a broader perspective. It gives you a wider scope of opinions to make decision from. And once you start implementing a particular opinion or ideology and it's not working, you have the liberty to go back to another, opinion where you are able to implement, and then any outcome that is expected, you are able to achieve, and then be able to fine tune. So soliciting opinion from subordinates, from other leaders, from those who are driving sectors, people you have put in place. You don't employ people to tell them what to do. You employ people to tell you, advise you on what is professional, what needs to be done. So opinion soliciting is a very integral part of leadership. You don't assume a posture of knowing it all, so you become the biggest, beneficiary, like I said earlier, and then all that translates into, the development that you want to see. So it's a very important part of leadership. Always ask the question, what do you think? What's your opinion? How do we navigate it? So you realize that as a leader, you ask a lot of questions. It doesn't make you weak. It just shows that you are humble enough to solicit for opinion, all geared towards a greater good, a collective good. So it doesn't make you weak as a leader. What happens is that it rather boosts the confidence of the people you are working with, those that you've empowered, you've put in place of leadership to deliver on your policy framework, on targets that you set. It also brings our confidence in people. Particularly for me, when somebody I highly respect, I've always wanted to meet, ask for opinion from, ask of my opinion, it gives me confidence. It brings out the best in me, and then it all adds up to the collective goal that we all want to achieve. So it doesn't undermine leadership at all.
But don't you get intimidated when the person you so much admire kind of try to ask for your opinion on something that you know that this person is more mastered in that area or is a guru in this field? Don't you get intimidated?
I don't get intimidated at all. I really admire anybody who does that. Like I said, it brings out the best in me. It tells me a lot about a person. It tells me that, yes, I'm home into an environment where I'll be able to serve, where I am appreciated, where I cannot disappoint, where I need to come with my A game. So it's one thing that really works on your psychology as well. It creates a very healthy environment. Everybody's confidence in themselves. They said that even if somebody who has been able to achieve things on a phenomenal level is still open-minded, is seeking for my opinion, my perspective, then it tells me that yes, indeed, I'm highly welcome in this environment, and I'm definitely going to give up my best.
Right. So then the question now moves in now. What is an economic transformation?
Very, very important conversation, very important topic. This is something we all want to see every single day. We are interrogating government policy. We are raising questions. We are calling in radio programs. We're on our socials debating these, policies every now and then, because we want to see our economies transform. Economic transformation is mainly positive change. Positive change in terms of finances of people, in terms of finances of the nation, in terms of how the country is moving into a direction where people's individual financial standpoints are enhanced, where the government or the nation's purse is also sitting well, where there's lazy capital for other developmental initiatives to take place. So economic transformation mainly is positive change in the economic, standpoint.
Right. That's the positive change. So before I even move on, most often during our sessions we do get hashtags for the day, and I think the hashtag has dropped. If it is not the final one, probably the first one has dropped for the day. So
Great.
viewers, our first hashtag has dropped, which is positive change. First hashtag has dropped for the day, which happens to be positive change. So,
Yes.
making that positive change, how does the leader then identify that which is that positive change that needs to be effected for the economic transformation to take place?
Well, I like in recent times, it's become obviously clear to us that information is very central to transfer economic transformation. What I see is pretty much lacking in our part of the world, Africa to be precise. Data collection is become so integral. It's something that is non-negotiable because you need information to make decisions. And the more you put in place mechanisms for you to be able to collect these decisions, it allows you to be able to pinpoint, specifics in terms of this is where the scenarios are, this is what the scenario is. How do we transform this scenario? How do we ensure that this scenario moves from its current, prevailing circumstance to a much more appreciable, circumstance that we all want. So when it comes to leadership, is about, knowledge gathering, data gathering, information gathering, if I should put it, to be able to make decisions. So when it comes to making that, hardcore decision, very, selfless decision, is based on how you are able to process data, is able to how you're able to make sense of the data. And even in recent times where I joined the World Tourism Institute, I realized that data was a very important tool in decision making, because once you look at trends of activities, you look at numbers, you look at feedback, you are able to zone in and prescribe solutions. So for me, I would zone in and say, as a leader, your ability to work with prevailing information is very key in economic transformation.
It's very key in economic transformation. So data has become the new or the latest highest point of gathering, stuff for transforming the economic of any organization or any country. That is data. Now, how do we do that? How do we gather this data? What are some of the mechanisms that will be put in place to be able to get the exact kind of data that is needed to propel the transformation of an economy? What are some of the mechanisms that needs to be put in place?
We as a generation, we are so fortunate. Industrialization 4.0 this year, technology is easily accessible, and we cannot forgive ourselves if we are not able to maximize on this wonderful opportunity that prevails currently. When we cast your mind back several years back, even just 50 years back, you realize that it will take a lot to get information. It will take a lot to gather data. Technology is here. There's data through emails, through telcos, through, even our socials. You are able to understand, even when you made a case of hashtag, you can get on Twitter, and based on a certain hashtag, you will know where the pulse of the world is, where the pulse of an economy is, where the pulse of a country is. So let's harness technology. Technology is very important in the Middle East, particularly Dubai. Right from the moment you enter into the airport, your information pops up. How many times have you been to Dubai? Where did you go? Where did you stay? What did you do? You understand? So some of these things is able to help us in decision making. We are very lucky. Technology is here. Let's maximize it. Let's never wait to play catch up. We cannot miss out on industrialization 4.0. Let's gather the best experts, the best minds in technology, and say, hey, how do we use technology to gather data? How do we make technology easily accessible? Internet is a very important part of technology lately, and we need to harness that. Government needs to push push the past when it comes to technology, when it comes to internet, when it comes to mainly infrastructure that would ensure that data is collected easily. In recent times, I was consulting for a country We had a meeting related to tourism, and based on the recommendations that we made, that look, when it comes to making decisions, it's based on information. And if you don't put these infrastructures in place, you miss out on a lot. Tourism, I'm using tourism as an example because you need to keep track of things. When people came to Ghana, where did they go to? This group of people, okay, they went to the Boti Falls. Somebody has been to Boti Falls. This is the third time. Why is it the third time? What are some of the things they expect to see when they come back? So technology allows us to do that. There are applications when people go to places, you capture the data, you capture information, you go back to the dashboard, you look at the trends, algorithms that allow people expect to say, okay, this is the trend, this is the map, this is what is showing, this is how indicators are popping up. Let's look at this thing, let's address this. So technology is here with us. We should harness it. We shouldn't miss out on this opportunity. And otherwise, we would play catch up. It's about time when things come, Africa really catch up. We've got nothing to lose. We need to quickly mobilize and say, hey, let's interrogate this new technology. How is it going to impact what we do? How is it going to help us to accelerate what we're doing, or even make our work easy, and then, ensure that we're able to attain certain outcomes that we want to see. So technology is what is going to help us to do that.
Right. That's brilliant and excellent. What of the case where you don't have the people that are really good at handling this technology that are in place to be able to gather or harvest this kind of information?
Investment. It's very important that we build capacity. Capacity is very essential. You don't want to miss out on this opportunity. You need in recent times, I don't know why I keep going back to the Middle East, particularly the UAE. They don't give any opportunity a chance to slip. Recently, they launched a million coders project. They want to empower over 1 million Emiratis to be able to code. This is where the investment is going. 1 million. How many? Even when you look at the population of Emirates in the UAE, I mean, how do you build capacity of 1 million people to be able to code? It tells you investment. It's investment. It's investment. We want to see more of this. We want to sit down with managers of economies, African economies, and say, look, let's invest in human capacity. Technology is here. If we want the best experts in technology, it takes investment to do that. Let's invest. Let's direct the money to building the capacity of these young people. Let's throw out the challenge. Who is interested in learning how to code? Who is interested in learning how to, build their capacity in technology? Let's sit down with the colleges who are, deploying this knowledge to young people about technology. Let's understand, are you catching up with the times? Are you working with prevailing technologies? Where are you? Are you deploying knowledge that becomes obsolete in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years? Things are changing with the speed of light. So you need people seated close to the president who are advising him and say, hey, Your Excellency, this is the new thing. This is where it's going. We don't want to miss out. Let's assemble the best brains. Let's go out there. Who is doing what? Let's bring them home. Create a boot camp of young people. This is it. We want you to stay here. We're going to provide you everything that you need. We don't have time because we are left out. We are 200 years behind. Let's quickly, so that sense of urgency. Development is deliberate. It's intentional. It's not something that you can be casual about. You have to be aggressive about it. And other leaders in various jurisdictions other than Africa are doing it. In recent time, Paul Kagame is highly glorified based on the fact that he's not given a chance to technology to slip by. So it takes leadership to do these things. It takes investment. It takes building capacity of people, particularly young people who are fresh. They've got, the energy is fresh. They are passionate. They are curious. They want to learn new ways of doing things. They get excited about everything new. When you go and bring people who have outdone their time, they have issues. They don't even embrace new things. They are thinking of there's so much on their mind. So young people are the biggest asset when it comes to making investment in capacity, technology capacity enhancement. So I would say investment is very important. Let's not compromise on investment. Otherwise, whenever the time is right for us to make decisions, we still go and bring people outside our jurisdiction. And this contributes to capital flights. It comes back to hurt our economic purse, and we are the biggest losers when it comes to that. Let's find the right investment, channel the right investment into the right direction, which is young people, and then we'll be very, very proud of ourselves when we do that. We'll see the transformation that we want to see, and it will be very fast. It's not going to be snail pace, and we are going to be happy as a continent. We need to transform, and investment is a very important part of transformation.
Wow. I just want you to continue talking.
Thanks for the brilliant questions too. I appreciate it.
I just want you to continue because you just blew my mind by giving me that figure. 1 million people.
They are not compromising. They don't. Exactly. 1 million people have been taught how to code. And it tells you the urgency they attach to development. They don't want to make decisions where it's slow. They said they want the development now. If you want something now, it will reflect in the sort of decisions that you make. It reflects in the sort of investments that you make. It reflects in the sort of conversations that you're having. And it becomes clear to everybody that yes, this leader is very serious about transformation. We need to give him all the support that we want, and then it's going to transform the continent at a pace that we're all going to appreciate. Development has to be now. Like His Royal Highness Al Maktoum always say, I want the best for my people. I don't want it 10 years from now. I want it now. That's why he will make a decision like, let's train 1 million people how to code.
Right. Yeah. So let's still stick there. Let's still stick to that side. But so having that number of people being taught how to code, that means there is a plan in place for that. It's not that they are just moving into just learning how to code, and after learning how to code, that is it. There is some kind of succession plan in place for them that is going to absorb this kind of people to do that. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but it's all with the investment. I'm looking at some other leaders. Once they see, His Royal Highness Maktoum doing that, okay, let's also just get people into learning how to code. Then we also go for about 500 people going to code, but there isn't any form of system that is going to absorb these people after they've finished with the coding. And then it becomes, yes, an investment, but it's of no use or is of no benefit to the society. So the next thing that we're going to talk about or want to find out about is how does economic transformation affect or impact the society one finds him or herself in based on this scenario?
Well, it does. And like I said, Africa is blessed with the biggest resource in terms of youth. We have a young youth population, and you would understand that purchasing power is a very important part of economic transformation. It allows economies to flourish. It allows businesses to grow at a very, significant pace. And when you are making decisions, it's always about the end goal. You take it from scratch and then look at it, particularly in reference to this example that I gave you about these coders, dispensation in the Middle East. Once you are making decisions, you also need to think ahead and put structures in place that, like you said, absorb all these people that are going to, be learning how to code. If it's 1 million coders, how do we put 100,000 coders in the health sector? How do we take 100,000 in the tourism sector? How do we take them into the oil sector? What would it take to absorb this? Infrastructure is a very important part of it. Let's look at, thinking ahead of time whilst they are learning how to code. Let's look at a conversation. Let's sit with, architects and look at how we're going to host them. Let's sit with experts, how we're going to harness this, talent who are ready, who've been equipped with, skill set to help us develop. How do we do that? So, like I was saying a while ago, that purchasing power is a very integral part of economic transformation, building economies. So once you've created opportunities for these young people, particularly even in entrepreneurship, because you want people to be, solution oriented, but not, problem oriented, where they get out of these coding scenarios and then come back and say, well, we've learned how to code, there are no opportunities. So you put structures in place, say, hey, anybody who wants to start a coding business, a technology business, we've created a pool where you need to join, you support this particular project with your skill set, we're going to pay you this amount, there are incentives for you, there's a hub for you to go, you don't pay office rent, internet. So all these things are well thought out. Is part of strategy. And if you don't look at strategy from a dashboard standpoint, you always miss out. You realize that you've made decisions, you've anticipated solution and problems, and then you build the solutions only for you to realize that, oh, we didn't think about this part of the solution and how we're going to navigate this stage of the conversation. That's why a lot of times you have so many policy somersaults in Africa, because it's not well thought out, is short term, is based on, a lot of times people also want to blame our dispensation on, and the fact that the Middle East is a monarchy is a flimsy excuse and is dead on arrival from where I sit. We need to be very serious about development, Ambassador. We need to be very serious about it. We need to look at the fact that once we are making decisions, it's based on solving problems, but not based on creating bigger problems for us. So I would always make a call and say that, look, let's think long term. Once we are thinking long term, in the process of this long term, there's also, interventions or strategies that makes us come back and relook at these long-term decisions and quickly fine-tune them based on outcomes that we are getting. You might make a decision to say, well, in the next 10 years, we want to see 1 million coders, but at a point you might realize that, oh, our scenario, our prevailing circumstances won't allow us to absorb this. How do we export some of these talents? Let's carry some of these talents to countries or areas where they are lacking in terms of these talents, and go and sit down with these people and say, look, we'll be able to do this. So you realize that it's based on strategy, and not being so entrenched and not being just limited in your thinking and saying that, look, it's about coding, let's train people in coding. But when these people finish the coding, whilst they are doing the coding, they are building capacity in coding, there's a whole committee that is also sitting trying to figure out how they'll be absorbed in the long term, even in the short term and also in the long term. It's based on decision. And I always would call on managers of economies to bring people who understand these things to the table. It's not based on color, it's not based on somebody's political colors, is not based on ideology, is based on the solutions that we want to our problems. Once you want solutions and you want it immediate, you are open, you lead with an open arm and you absorb everybody in deploying these solutions to you. So that is what I'll have to say, Ambassador. And I think that it has to be now. It shouldn't be a conversation where we say, well, when we get there, we think of what to do. Mostly that is what African leaders do, and it has to change. It has to change. We don't want to get there and think of another solution. We want to start thinking ahead and prescribing those solutions in anticipation of potential setbacks, and then we will do just fine with our ambition to transform our economies.
Wow, beautiful. Let me just help you with what you were trying to say. What they normally say in Africa is, when we get to the bridge, we'll cross it.
Absolutely. It's very, very annoying, Ambassador.
When we get to the bridge, we're going to cross it. when people have thought of crossing the bridge years ago, we want to just start thinking when we get to the bridge, and then we're going to waste more time and impound a lot of pressure on already the existing things that we have. Right. So I really love we going to the Middle East because it's because of where you've gotten most of the exposure and experience from. So it's good when you're giving us some of the examples. So aside the million people going into the coding, we want to get another example from that side, which can easily be inculcated into the strategical kind of thinking in Africa by leaders here. But before we do that, stick around. We're going for our next commercial break. And right after that, Farouk is going to take us to that next level of getting us some of these examples that he just shared with us and how they're going to have a great impact on the Africa leadership way of thinking transformatically with our economic way of doing things. So stick around, don't go anywhere. Going to be back after this short commercial break.
Need a spark to kickstart your innovation? Looking for thought and talks to get things moving? Wondering how to navigate a future full of change and uncertainty? With the eye-opening stories of digital disruption, extreme customer centricity, organizational innovation, and global shift, our collective of speakers, MCs, and moderators will shift your perspective. Meet our speakers. For booking and interviews, contact us on 0246 054092 or send us a mail info.accessnet@gmail.com. You can also follow us on all social media channels at AccessNet Global, African Seasoned Speakers Network, influencing the next generation of Africans.
Right, welcome back to the Power Impact series, where today we're having with us the CEO of Premium African Holdings and the Senior Vice President of EasyPay Africa and the Managing Partner of Akon Lighting Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, he is in the studio with us. The long-awaited man. Mr. Farouk is here with us, and for the past few minutes, he has blown our minds with the role of leadership in economic transformation, and he has dealt with it brilliantly. And we are still here learning. We're not moving an inch because he's not done with what he's doing. He's still giving us more insight into the roles that leaders play, and he is actually giving us a lot of his exposure and a lot of his consulting engagement from the Middle East, and it's going so well with that. So proud to be going on the commercial break. We asked that he give us another example that we can use to also help influence leadership, strategical ways of making certain decisions that is going to influence us, not to think of when we get to the bridge, we will cross it, but to think way before we even see a bridge ahead of us, and then we know how to cross it. Yeah, so Mr. Farouk, before we went, that was what I posed to you so that we get some kind of insight into this kind of phenomenon to move us faster, because we have been crawling, we have been delaying, and we have the largest form of human resource, which is the youth in Africa now. And what do we need to do to position the youth of Africa into pole stages and pole places to be able to think ahead before we get to the problem, and then we start to now think in solving the problem? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben, for this brilliant question. Like, I always like to share perspective from, the Middle East. This is a place where in 2017, I committed a lot of my time to really interrogate, investigate, speak with people who were able to build Dubai to what it is. I had a privilege to speak to one gentleman, one very highly respected, His Highness Sheikh Saud Balawi, who was credited with building the Dubai Nasdaq. And it was a pen and paper situation for me, and I took my time. And he promised me one thing and said, Farouk, with these nuggets, perspectives that I've given to you, I expect you to go back, be a voice, never stop talking, That's why when opportunities like this to, to share my perspective and also speak to conversations that would really impact the continent, I quickly subscribe to it. He said, your biggest resource is your younger generation. Your biggest resource is your younger generation. And when we were trying to build Dubai, we considered that. We said in the next 10 years, this young energy that we have in young people, how do we position them for them to be in charge? We don't have the best expert when it comes to IT. We don't have the best experts when it comes to architecture. We don't have, but we're going to bring the best brains to develop our people, to train our people, to build capacity of our people, to be able to lead us in the direction that we want to see. So it boils down to leadership, decision making. It boils down to being able to harness the resources that is available to you, which is young people. And one thing I've also realized in the Middle East is that ideas are not cast in concrete. There's always come back to relook at ideas. If you run a business in the Middle East, the amount of questionnaires you get in a month based on, trying to assess how your business is doing, what are the challenges. Even one thing as entrepreneurs in the Middle East, a lot of times when we meet, we said, don't these guys get tired of reforms? Don't these, because every fortnight or every quarter, there are reforms. Reforms geared towards growth, towards making UAE the best place to do business, the best place to live, the best place. Just a couple of weeks ago, new reforms were made based on, freelance professionals. It's just mainly to create that ecosystem where development thrives. They don't want development to be stagnant. And they've appreciated that, look, it all boils down to decision making. If a model is not working, nothing stops us from going back to the drawing board to quickly modify it and come back and say, hey, based on what we've observed, we want you guys to move in this direction. We've made this allocation, we've made these changes, so, and it relates to youth empowerment that I say is very important part of their growth. They harness the potential of young people. They say, let's have a database of young people who are passionate about sports. Let's have a database of young people who have expressed interest in technology. Let's have a database of young people who have expressed passion in agriculture. Let's have a database of people who want to get into tourism or anything related in various sectors. Let's bring them together. Let's bring the best people to speak to them. Let's share perspective. Let them understand that we are building a strategy like this. Let's solicit for their opinions. Let's also, give our opinions. Let's form a framework together with the understanding, the passion, and where they want to go. So that when we are moving, we don't have a case where people's momentum are questionable. People's passion are questionable. You don't bring somebody who's passionate about sports into a space where he needs to, be in the medical field. So you realize that everybody who is in a sector is giving off their best. That's why I'm saying harnessing talent is a very, very important part of of development. Africa is missing out on this opportunity, and if we don't take our young generation serious, we'll come back and we'll still have these unfortunate, embarrassing, prevailing realities that we have. So it's a clarion call to leaders across the continent to understand that your best resource is young people. And the earlier we start putting in policies that favors young people, why don't we have a startup bank in various African countries, right? Because if you want to create opportunities, you want to create jobs, it's based on entrepreneurship. Government has no business doing business. Government's business is to create favorable environments for business to thrive. When business thrives, people become economically empowered. Purchasing power is significantly enhanced, and then it translates, it creates that domino effect in anything that we do. We want to see governments creating environments where young people's ideas is allowed to flourish. And once these ideas have been put in place, are being implemented, let's monitor and see how to guide these ideas based on outcomes that, we are observing, and quickly make a decision. How many people have registered technology-related companies from the registry journal? Bring us that data. We want to assess it. We want to look at it. They have their telephone numbers on these registration documents. We have the time because we are behind time. We cannot be casual about our decision. We're going to run a night and morning shift. Morning shift will come and assess these data, make decision, gather the information, call these people, have a conversation. Since you started your business, what are some of the challenges? So you have a pool of challenges. Like I said, it comes back to data. You assess this data and say, look, Mr. President, based on our findings, this is what the problems are when it comes to technology startups. They are lacking in this space. Prices of things, logistics that they need to advance their businesses is really stifling their growth. We need to look at a policy that can, make the environment favorable. So we have to be very intentional with development. We have to see that our young people are the biggest resource, because when you are making decisions based on prevailing circumstances and not looking at those who are coming to walk themselves into these circumstances and carry these scenarios into a standpoint where we'll all be proud of, you miss out on a fine opportunity to develop. So like UAE, every young person's database is being captured. Your growth is being captured. There's a framework where you are always being engaged. Can you imagine what goes into this? And say there's a platform where they say, hey, Saud, Muhammad, how is your company doing? Well, this is the numbers that we've been able to achieve. I've done this, please. What can be done to help you? I need this. And it's based on decentralizing the solutions. You don't have to sit at one point trying to solve the problem of the entire country. Decentralize the solution. Look at Kumasi, look at Takrady, look at Tamale, in Dansoman. Do we have a startup office to speak to these young people who have started businesses in Dansoman? Do we have a place where they can call and share their frustration? We can also reach out to them. Let's be serious. Once we look at numbers, we decentralize. We said, okay, let's create satellite spaces between the Dansoman enclave. This is their office for startups, because these are people who will create the economic power that we want. It's true entrepreneurship. Government cannot create. There are times where we have, identified loopholes in policies. I'm not speaking from the Ghana standpoint. I'm speaking across the continent, where government tries to implement interventions that are not sustainable. Yes, we understand you are passionate about young people. You want them to get something doing immediately. But if you become desperate, you make decisions that are not sustainable. Make decisions that are sustainable. Make decisions that will not come back in the next half a decade to come and, bite you in the foot and destroy an entire system. Becomes an exercise that has wasted resources, people's time, has killed morale. What I realized, particularly in East Africa, there was this intervention where they were making allocations to young people who are just home. And by the time they realized, they've created a massive, number of young people who don't want to do anything because there's an intervention that, takes care of them when they are not employed. Why couldn't have that resource channeled into saying, what are you passionate about? Hey, Michael, come here. We want to have a conversation with you. In the last 10 years, what has taken all your time? Well, I spent a lot of my time, on the internet, entertainment stuff. Oh, so you love entertainment. What do you want to do? Well, since I love entertainment, I want to go into artist management. How many people have expressed interest in going into artist management? Why don't we speak to Sarkodie's manager and say, hey, we want to have a conversation with you. We have this number of young people who have expressed interest in going into artist management. We want you to have a meet, sit down with us. Let's develop a curriculum, a plan. Let's create a database of these people. Put a statement out. Hey, young people who are artists, we've trained some people as artist management. We're going to align you with all these people. Let's sit down with those who are passionate about auto mechanic. Let's sit down with In recent times, you realize that young people are trying to develop things, technology. You realize that this one has built a car and said, wow, this young man is developing a car, but his approach is quite obsolete. He's developing cars based on, you know, hundreds years of back, strategy, ideology. Elon Musk is changing, he's disrupting the automobile sector. Let's look at how we can harness these young men's potential so that it's in tune with recent times, recent solutions, so that he doesn't develop a car that cannot fit in, fit in our current scenarios. And you realize that the young man has wasted his entire, but this is a young man who has proven and has shown us that he's passionate about this thing. So look, it's very important that we are serious about development. It's very important that managers of economies deploy solutions. Go to the Middle East and sit down with these people. How do you do it? In recent times, I've been called to serve at, certain international organizations, and every day it dawns on me that Africans have what it takes, to be able to develop. It's just that the confidence, we need to be able to be serious about development. We don't have to do anything new. Others have done it. Let's go look at their approach, look at what they did right. If we think that we lack ideas in that space, let's keep a close rank with them, invite them, let's sit down with them and channel the resources into the right place. We are creating an avenue where every young man wants to go into politics. We want to, because immediately you get into politics, I'm not saying it's wrong. You have an SUV at your disposal, and the young man who has started a business and is begging for capital is not getting it, is looking at his younger brother who entered politics, and he said, but he's better off. Why don't I also join? And then we miss out on people who can help us build economies, who can help us create more jobs for ourselves, all going into politics. If we don't make these hard, very sacrificial decisions, it will come back to haunt us. Development is intentional. We have to be serious about it. We need to understand that it's young people that are going to help us develop and sustain some of these development achievements that we're helping. And some of us are not going to shut up. They say, why am I everywhere speaking? I said it's important that we speak, because if we don't speak in the next 10 to 15 years, we'll come back and say it's because we didn't speak. I'm a biggest beneficiary of people listening to people who have done things on a certain level. And I think it's important that, that's why I always commend people like yourself, for initiating this platform where we get to share our ideas, where people pick up, a certain perspective. And I would also, one thing I realized about our leaders is that they listen. As much as we say the way they approach development is suspect, they listen. It's just that at times when they listen, they get caught up in other things. We need to keep, reminding them and say, hey, we spoke about this, we spoke about this, we spoke about this. This is the way we're going to transform our economies. We have to be serious about it. We always need to interrogate things with trends. How do we make things better? How do we harness our talents? How do we create, like I said, every district should have a startup office where, having conversations with those who are starting their business. And these data goes back into a pool where we can even take to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning and say, this is what the trends are. It looks like those in the technology space are doing well. It looks like those in the fashion space are doing well. It looks like those in this space. How did you get this info? Oh, this is what we got from Dansuma. This is what we got from Bantama. This is what we got from Koforidua. This is what we got from. So we're able to process the data. If we don't gather information, we will be sitting in our air-conditioned offices making decisions that have failed or are dead on arrival. So it's important. I will never stop pushing the conversation about managing information, gathering information, and using that information to make decisions that would liberate us economically and put us on the path where our development is not snail pace, it's at an appreciable pace. Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Wow. I have finished clapping for you in my head. We will never stop pushing you from you stopping yourself from pushing the leaders to get the things that are needed to be done being done. So that's the bottom line. So as long as you're not ready to stop, we are also not ready to stop pushing you. Brilliant ideas. Development is intentional. It has to be, and it should be. And that is what it's supposed to mean to all of us, that we need to have an intentional mind for development. And also, I love that brilliant idea. We need to have a startup office in every district, so we can harness what these young people are doing. And leaders should step in from the initial stages, so we don't develop things that are going to be obsolete, which will have no value. After wasting all that time in developing it, it becomes something of no use. Then what was the reason in doing that? And that is what is keeping us always withdrawing and going back and back and back. A story was said about a man who was running a 400-meter race. So what he did was, when he started his race and got to the 100-meter line, what he did was he threw the baton back to where he started his race. So the one who was supposed to pick up the baton had to run back 100-meter race, pick the baton, run another 100 meters, and now start his own race. So by the time he could get to where he was supposed to hand over the baton, those he started with are already done. And that is the problem we have. Some of our African leaders, some of the African terrain, we keep getting back and just retrogressing. So we are not always catching up with the trend. And that was a brilliant submissions you did there. We need to step in at the initial stages, so we don't waste time in doing things which are going to be obsolete. Right. Mr. Farouk, we want to say a very big thank you for availing yourself to push leaders at this critical time with all that you have, with all those very beautiful and brilliant ideas you've given to us. So one of the things you made mention about artist management and stuff, what does Acorn Light in Africa do?
Well, Acorn Light in Africa is a renewable energy focused company. Mainly, we want to harness, the solar technology to create, an economic force in Africa. We appreciate that in our development, energy is a very integral part and essential to really accelerate our development. You cannot grow without power, without energy. So we are creating these interventions. We've already, impacted 14 African countries. We are accelerating. We've already looked at last year. In this year, April, we met in Dubai to look at our strategy moving forward. The scope of Acorn Lighting has broadened beyond solar, and we're looking at building female solar academies across, the continent. Yeah, so recently I just finalized an agreement with UNESCO and then the University of Embu in Kenya to set up a first female solar academy where, we empower our women. Absolutely, we empower our women in solar technology in terms of, managing and also maintaining these technologies, even in terms of assembling, solar related technology. So that's the focus of Acorn Lighting. And also it's gone beyond solar. Now we're looking at, other, interventions in terms of, agriculture, in terms of tourism, so and it tells you, like I say, we want to be deliberate about development. We are highly provoked. We are not excited about the Africa we see. We are annoyed positively, and we say we're going to be a protest project. Myself and Akon and the entire team, we are so much not comfortable with the Africa we see. And if you become comfortable, you are done. So we are not comfortable, and it's going to be a protest project for us. We're highly fired up. And pretty soon, my home country, Ghana, is going to benefit. Conversation is ripe. We're speaking to the appropriate authorities. We're saying, what we want it now. We cannot wait, so you cannot have our documents sitting in your office for even for 5 days. Before you come, so we want to be ahead of, governments. I mean, for some reasons they are slow. We don't want to be slow. Nobody should slow us down. So our strategy is to be ahead of African governments, and they need to catch up. And I'm sure they will do catch up. They are sensible enough to catch up. And we will see the Africa we want in our time. Ambassador Benjamin, we cannot wait. We want to see it in our time. So that's why enterprises like what you're doing is very important for us. My team at Acorn Lighting are also waiting to see how this conversation goes, and I'm very excited that I'm part of this phenomenal, ambitious dream of Acorn to create economic empowerment for Africa. And I'm also building momentum. I'm gathering an army. I'm also through my Farouk Khailann School of African Greatness, I'm creating an army of young people who understand that yes, we should be provoked. You shouldn't be wasting your time, talking about the problems. Nobody owes you anything. As much as we blame our leaders for our problems, they don't owe us anything. We will develop ourselves. We'll read. We'll get on internet and empower ourselves. Read material that would impact what we do. We will be serious about our lives. So this is what we're doing, and I'm really grateful to Acorn Lighting. It's brought a lot of perspective. It's also broadened my network. I've identified people who have the financial muscle, intellectual muscle to help us, liberate Africa's youth. So I'm very passionate about this, and that's what Acorn Lighting represents: passion for Africa, and we will do some great things. We'll do some great things, especially when we look at the strategy over the last 6 to 7 years since Acorn Lighting started. We have some very exciting projects coming, and I'm sure you'll be privy to these things when it takes effect.
Right, you do great things for Africa, and you want to execute the passion in the African youth to make it in life, or to make it wherever they find themselves out. As they always say, the African youth is always going to brighten up the corner where they find themselves, and Acorn Lighting is here to power that.
Thank you. I like that. I like that, man. I like that. I like that.
Well, it's been a wonderful time having you, Mr. Farouk Khailann. It's
same here. Thank you so much for the brilliant questions. I really appreciate that.
We are so grateful, and thank you also. So thank you, viewers. It has been a wonderful time having in our studio Mr. Farouk Khailann, from sharing with us from the Middle East through Africa and back again to the Middle East, and all the way to the Americas, to the Asia, and to the other parts of the whole world, and letting us know what is happening, and letting the African youth get onto the right trend, get onto the right train, and get onto the right track, so that we continue making and influencing the places we find ourselves in. On behalf of the African Season Speakers Network, which is the power supporter and sponsor of the Power Impact Series, myself, Ambassador Benjamin Owusu-Ansah, I want to say it was a very wonderful time having you on this show, and also having your comments coming in. It's a wonderful comment that has come in here for you, Farouk, and I think I will have to send them over to you, because it's insightful, it's worthwhile. People are saying yes to Ghana. Ghana is the benefiting. I mean, how can we get in touch from Lady Be Blessed? Lady Be Blessed, I'm going to connect Farouk to you straight away from here. And then keep saying, some of the comments are like, we needed to start this as early as yesterday. We need to get connected. We need to move faster. We've slowed down for so long. It is our time. This is our season for us to get there. So, Mr. Farouk, perfect, brilliant submissions. God bless you. You've been a wonderful pushing force for us, and the youth of Africa would forever cherish and always acknowledge the push you give into leaders or governments or people in pole positions to make the voice of the youth be heard and their potential being unleashed. So I want to say thank you. And viewers, just stick around. We're going to have you here same time next week. It's always going to be something else happening here on the Power Impact Series. And as I always say, dreams are in levels. Make sure you get to the top level of your dream. Till we meet again, same time next week, we want to say have a wonderful week, and bye-bye.